This week, we have this period. We're moving toward the full moon day. The day when the Bodhisattva named Siddhartha Gautama let go and became the Buddha, Shakyamuni, the Bhagawan Buddha. His path to that great insight was long. It was very, very long. And we have the great privilege of learning about that path, that astonishing path of surrender and sacrifice. That allowed him to teach virtue and ethics, knowing that this is the way to happiness. Happiness is the result of virtue. That's the reason you follow the precepts. They're not a chore. They're not an obstruction to what you want. They are the way to happiness. That's the reason you follow them, so that you can be happy. The same as the reason you serve the world is so that you can be happy. That's the reason. That's why. It works out perfectly, don't worry. It's not selfish, because you awaken to the happiness that is everywhere. That's why it's more happiness than people have who are selfish, because they only get my happiness, but we get all happiness, and that's more happiness. But he had to figure this out the same as us. We're here doing all kinds of stupid things, and he had to do a bunch of stupid things. A lot of bad things. He learned from them as well as he could, but it was still stupid. And we learn about this attempt, this striving. Maybe I can do it, maybe I can't. I don't know how to do it. In what's called the Jataka tales, the birth stories, the stories of the Buddha's past lives. And these Jataka tales have been very influential in world history. They have been the basis of an entire genre of literature called fairy tales. And I believe, even though I have little evidence for it, but I nonetheless believe it, that when we say once upon a time, we say that in our fairy tales. We say once upon a time. Well, some of you may know how these stories begin, right? They begin with, Evam me sutam, thus have I heard. And then the next words are, Ekam samayam, which means, at one time. Ekam one samayam, time. Time here meaning instant. There are different words for time, but here it means moment or occasion. So now we say once upon a time. Once upon a time. Kind of a funny phrase, isn't it? Well, it had to come from somewhere. They've only traced it back to the 13th century, so I bet it came from India. Many centuries before that. So we have these tales, and I'd like to tell you a few of them. This is a nice one. I like this one a lot. So, at one time there was a quail who was in fact the Bodhisattva. This is the being who eventually became the Buddha. This is a long, long, long time ago. A very long time ago. A long time ago. Yes? Once upon a time, long, long ago. there was a quail. Maybe some of you don't know what a quail is. A quail is a little bird. It's like, it's a little bit like a grouse. We don't have quail around here. There are no quail at all, but we have grouse. Some of you know what grouse are? Maybe not? Oh, some are nodding. Oh, good. So a grouse, just to give you a sense of it, the grouse are the ones who sort of scurry around in the woods. Maybe you've seen them. They're very surreptitious in their movement. They sort of sneak, but with that, you know, the movement that they have. Their body stays mysteriously still while the head's moving a lot. You know, and they sort of scurry, and then they stop. And they scurry. They like to go under things. The females are the ones who are probably near you crying out in pain with a broken wing. You've probably seen her doing this sometimes when you're going through the woods. With her wing out as if it's broken. That's because her nest is nearby and she's trying to trick you into chasing after her to eat her so that she'll forget about her nest. And then when you get close enough, she hopes she'll be able to fly away. But at least you won't get the nest. And the males are the ones who beat their wings that way. Some of you may have heard a motor starting up in the woods occasionally. You hear that sound? Boom, 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 boom. You know that? Oh, good. You all know it. You've heard it. That is a ruffed grouse. And the way it makes that sound is quite astonishing. It's not a two-cylinder engine. It is a ruffed grouse. And what's happening is that the male is calling out to this magnificent female who's willing to risk her life for their eggs with her wing. So he thinks, well, I want that kind of a mate. He's impressed. So he needs to get her over here. So he gets on top of his log. He has a territory that he defends assiduously. And in that territory he has a log. And on his log, he sits up straight, just like you guys, sitting back on his tail, just like you guys. And he beats his wings. Are you ready for this? He beats his wings so hard. This is true. So, some of you are laughing because you know where this is going. This is incredible. He beats his wings so hard that they break the sound barrier. And that's why you hear it echoing through the woods like that, because those are literally sonic booms. Those are sonic booms coming off of this little grouse on a log. It's incredible. It's so impressive that the female thinks, wow, that's impressive. That's very attractive. And so she makes her way under the brush, and we'll leave them to that. Anyway, now you have a sense of what it's like. A quail is similar species, and so this quail like to eat insects and such, and so this quail was foraging around for insects and couldn't find too many insects in his range. He had a range and a field. They like cultivated fields where they can root out insects, but they couldn't find too many insects, and so he went out of his appropriate domain. Oh no. And a hawk, of course, saw the quail and swooped down to catch it. But this was an unusually courageous quail. And so the quail said to the hawk, "Hawk, you caught me this time. Okay. But you know what? I'm going to tell you something. If I had been back in my own domain, you would have never caught me." Not a chance. No way. I know that place really well. You couldn't have caught me there. Tonk said, yes, I could have. He said, no. No, you couldn't have. What are you talking about? I caught you easily just now. Yeah, but that's because I'm here. I'm not over there, am I? So I said, okay, fine. Okay. I'll let you go over there. And I'll just catch you again. He said, no, you won't. I'm going to do it. Well, you can try. If you'll excuse me. I'm going to head back over there. Okay, fine. Head back over there. I'm going to go in this tree here and just wait for you to get there. Then I'm going to catch you again. Okay, very good. And so the quail went back into his appropriate domain. And then the hawk swooped down. And the quail knew just what to do. As soon as the shadow started coming, the quail immediately did what they do. He went right under the rock. He was on the rock, under the rock, very fast. And the hawk landed right on the rock to catch the quail and broke his breast and died right there. So the moral of the story, of course, is don't leave your domain. In particular, as the Buddha was telling the story about his past, he meant, do not leave the jhanas. Do not do it, monks. When I left my appropriate domain, I got caught by a hawk, but then I went back and it was okay. Don't leave the jhanas. Don't do it. The moment you leave the jhanas and get lost in sensual desire and all that stuff, it's going to get really bad for you right away. Mara is going to come and get you. But if you stay in your appropriate domain, he won't be able to. However, the nice thing about this story, in addition to that, is that you see the Buddha was just an ordinary quail who I don't know, maybe you couldn't say he actually murdered the hawk, but nah, you know, taunted to the point of death. So we see, okay, he's kind of like us. You know, kind of a jerk. Trying to learn, trying to figure it out. Okay, probably I shouldn't have done that. But then again, I survived, which was good. So I got a lesson out of it, but now I'm going to try to do better. That's just the first story of when the Buddha was an animal, but here's another one. This one is really famous. So there was once a time when a partridge, again, similar to a grouse, similar to a grouse, if you want to know what partridge are like, you can go out and rummage around until you see a grouse pretending to be unable to get away. You can try to find the male, but you never will. Because it's so dangerous for them to be on that log, so they have a special hiding place, and the moment anyone gets near, they go in. Hawks are just listening for that sound. So that's why they need their appropriate domain. Anyway, so there was a partridge, there was an elephant, and a monkey. And in some ways of telling it, a rabbit. And they were all together, and they were having an argument. And they were arguing over who is the senior person around here. The elephant said, well, I'm the biggest one, so I'm the boss. And the monkey said, well, I'm the smartest one, so I'm the boss. The partridge said, well, actually, just so you know, the appropriate way for us to figure out who the boss is whoever is oldest. The oldest person has the most experience, and so they're the senior one. I had to think about, okay, well, how do we figure out who's oldest? We don't have birthdays, of course. We're just partridge, elephants, and monkeys. We don't pay attention to that kind of thing. So how do we know who the oldest person is, anyway? Well, they just happen to be near a small tree. And the elephant said, well, you know, I remember, I'm so old that I remember when this tree was only as high as my belly. I remember when it was much smaller than it is now, so I'm pretty old. And the monkey said, no, you're not. That's not old at all. I remember when that was just a little sapling, very small. When I was a little monkey, I remember, little tiny sapling. So I'm older than you, ha! And the partridge said, very good. Well, I have to tell you that that tree was planted by me when I defecated right there a long time ago. A seed in a fruit that I'd eaten was in those feces, and it sprouted and became this tree. So I'm the oldest one. So I said, okay, well, very good, then you're the boss. And so they decided that since the tree was so helpful, that they would take good care of it. And so they did. They took care of it, and they took care of the whole forest under the partridge's direction. So this might seem to you like a sort of ridiculous tale, but did anyone tell you this story when you were a kid, Ava? You never heard it? It's actually very famous. I heard it in the monasteries many times. There's a lot you can get out of it. Part of it is about seniority, of course, but it's also about our interactions with nature, the importance that everything we do, including, or you could say especially, disposing of our waste, is done in a mindful way that actually cares for the world. And that we understand the significance of the world's care for us, and so we offer the same. However, once again, I would say, isn't it an interesting tale? Here you have this person, or this Buddha, as a partridge, a little bit fighting over seniority, but wisely giving a good way to determine who should be senior, and trying to get along. Trying to figure out, how do we all get along in this forest here? How do we take care of our home? So, a long time after that, eventually that partridge passed away. And a long time after that, that being, that bodhisattva, was reborn as a king of the deer. A deer king named Banyan. He was a king of a very large herd of deer. And at that time, the human king in the area really liked eating deer. And this is actually a very long story, but I'm going to skip ahead. In any case, we eventually come to the point when this king, with soldiers and such, is constantly going through the woods killing deer. And in doing that, he makes lots of trouble in the woods. Other animals are hurt, habitat is destroyed and such. Before I continue on, consider the world back then. There were huge forests back then. There were many more animals then than there are now. And even then, as this story is being told, there's a clear concern for habitat destruction. I'd just like to point that out. This was thousands of years ago, and they were really worried about hunters walking through the woods, disturbing habitat for the animals. It's a major component of the story. You don't go into the woods disturbing the habitat. Definitely don't burn it down. There's a huge concern about cultivating land. This was back then. This was before we converted, what is it now? 70%, I think, of the land area on the planet to human use, which I think is what it's at now, something like that, 60 something percent, almost 70%, more than 2/3 of the total land on the planet has been converted to human use. This is back then, and they were very worried. The Buddha, as he told this story, is making a clear statement. You really shouldn't disturb habitat. What about all of the animals, the insects living there? Everything you do, you have to be careful of them. I find it very inspiring. So anyway, the king and his soldiers are going through the woods, and the deer are really concerned about all these other animals that are getting killed. And so they had the idea, why don't we just decide a lottery and one of us just goes to them every day and they just eat that one. And then the same number of deer die, but no one else dies. That would be better. Let's do it that way. And so they agreed. Yes, that's a good idea. This is King Banyan, the deer king. Remember him, the bodhisattva? His idea was we should do it this way, because that way at least we as a deer care for the rest of the forest. And so that's what they did. So they would send one deer at a time, one deer each day. And the king and the soldiers were pretty happy with this. They felt like, well, okay, I guess we don't even have to go hunting anymore. We just kill the deer. So the deer would come. They'd slaughter the deer, eat the deer. The next day, the next deer would come. They thought it was very convenient. Typical humans. So one day, a doe who was pregnant was selected in this lottery. And they hadn't thought of that. And she went to the person running the lottery, the deer person running the lottery, and said, but I'm with child. This is killing two beings. I'm happy to go, but it would be killing two beings. That doesn't seem right. But they said, well, we can't change the rules midway. Well, then she thought, I don't know, I think I have to go to a higher authority. So she snuck off and found King Banyan. And she told him the situation. And he said, no, we can change the rules in the middle. So you just go off. Don't worry about it. I wish you the best. And so he himself went, and they have some there's these illustrations. I was looking at one book where they have this nice illustration of the chopping block with the cleaver and this deer putting his throat on it to make it as convenient as possible for the person who would kill him. So he, with his beautiful silver antlers, his beautiful golden coat, magnificent buck, he went and he offered himself. And this was an extraordinary being, incredible, king of the deer. And so the butcher just couldn't bring himself to kill this deer. There's something different about him, something in his eyes. And so he called the king. He said, King, I don't think I can kill this deer. I think this is the king of the deer. I think you're needed. So the king went down, the human king went down, and looked at this buck and was amazed. And he said, aren't you the king of the deer? Why would you come? And he said, well, they can speak. So the deer said, well, any one of us can be chosen, but today we had this problem because a doe was with child and she was pregnant and I didn't feel right about that, so I came instead. He said, what? You offered yourself even though you're the king? He said, well, yeah, that's what kings should do. And so the king had to make a decision. Oh no, what do I do? And he finally experienced the thing that is best for humans, which we avoid the most. He experienced regret. And he realized, no, I cannot kill this deer, but that means that I shouldn't kill any deer. And so the buck, the king, King Banyan, he had his head still on the chopping block. He said, do you promise not to kill any deer? He said, yes, I promise not to kill any more deer. No more deer. He said, but that's only the deer, isn't it? What about all the other animals, huh? You're going to kill them? He said, okay, then you should just kill me now. Okay, I won't kill any animals. Only animals? What about the people? I'm a king. I mean, I have to kill people. It's my job. Okay, then just kill me. Okay. No more killing. No more killing. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I won't kill anymore. And so then the king of the deer sprung up and said, excellent! Very good, thank you very much. And he went back to join the herd again.